All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a car that, let's be honest, many of us have probably forgotten about. But hiding behind that familiar name is this massive global story of smart engineering, incredible value, and just pure persistence. Let's talk about the Hyundai Accent. And look, that is the million-dollar question, right? Because yeah, while the Accent disappeared from showrooms in the UK and Europe ages ago, it went on to become an absolutely huge success in other parts of the world, like North America and Asia. To really get this car, you have to zoom out and see the whole global picture. So, here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with the Accent's underdog story. Then we'll track its growth through all 5 generations. After that, we'll pop the hood and look at how its engines evolved, and even get into the nitty-gritty of the chassis itself. And we'll wrap it all up with a really practical used buyer's guide. So let's get into it. Okay, so here's the thing. In Europe, the Accent kind of faded away and was replaced by cars like the i20. But that is not the whole story, not by a long shot. If you only look at it from that perspective, you miss why this car was such a massive global player for Hyundai. So it all kicks off back in 1994 with this car, the X3. And you've got to understand, this was a massive statement from Hyundai. Its mission was simple, but it was really ambitious. Build a car that was affordable, super dependable, and, this is the important part, powered by its very own in-house designed Alpha Series engines. For a Korean car maker back then, that was a huge, huge deal. But of course, Hyundai wasn't about to just sit back and relax. Over the next couple of decades, the Accent went through this incredible transformation. From a pretty basic, functional little car into something that was genuinely stylish and a modern competitor. You can really see this journey happen across 5 key generations. It started with that first gen, the X3, which was all about pure dependability. Then the second gen got a bit more mature in its design. The third gen really focused on refinement, making it feel a bit nicer. But the fourth gen, that was a style revolution with what they called fluidic sculpture. And then, for the 5th generation, they kind of went back to basics, focusing on core strength and safety. And this wasn't just about making it look different. The car literally grew up. Just look at these numbers. It got a lot longer, a lot wider, and the wheelbase stretched out too. Now, this wasn't just for looks. What does that mean for you? Well, more room inside and a much more stable, safer car on the road. Right, but a car is so much more than its shell, isn't it? The real heart of the Accent story, the reason it got this reputation for reliability, is what's under the hood. The engines went from being these simple, tough-as-nails workhorses to some genuinely advanced and efficient power plants. And a huge part of that engine story comes down to 3 letters: GDI, gasoline direct injection. This was a pretty big deal, the kind of tech you'd normally find on much fancier, more expensive European cars. Basically, it sprays fuel right into the cylinder at high pressure. This lets the engineers get more power and better fuel economy out of the engine. And Hyundai bringing this to the Accent, it was a real game changer. And you can see just how much of a difference it made right here. Look at that jump. We're talking nearly 30 more horsepower from the exact same 1.6-liter engine. That's not just a small tweak, that is a massive leap forward in performance for a car in this class. But then, for the 5th and final generation, Hyundai did something really smart. They actually dialed back the peak horsepower a tiny bit. Now, why would they do that? Because they were focusing on how people actually drive. They wanted better fuel economy in city traffic, and more responsive power when you're just pulling away from a stoplight, rather than a big number on a spec sheet. Okay, so you've got a great engine. But that's only half the story, right? An engine needs a solid foundation to work with, and that's the chassis. It's the skeleton of the car, and it affects everything: how it drives, how quiet it is, and most importantly, how safe it is. And for the 5th generation, this is where Hyundai really went all in. So I'm just gonna put a number up on the screen: 54.5%. Any guesses what that is? Well, that's the percentage of advanced high-strength steel that Hyundai packed into the 5th gen's chassis. And that is a huge jump from the generation before it. We're talking about making the car's skeleton both lighter and way, way stronger at the same time. And what does all that stronger steel get you? Well, it gets you this: a 32% improvement in what's called torsional rigidity. Now, that sounds super technical, but what it really means is the car's body twists a lot less. And that has this massive ripple effect. The car handles better, it's quieter inside, and, most importantly, it's a whole lot safer if you get into an accident. It's a fundamental upgrade from the ground up. All right, we've nerded out on the engineering for a bit. Now, let's bring it back to the real world. The Accent is a super popular used car in a lot of places. So, what if you're actually thinking about buying one? What do people love? What do they complain about? And what should you be looking for? When you look at what owners say, a few things come up again and again and again. First, the value. It's just off the charts. People love that they're getting a ton of features for their money. Then there's the engine reliability. These things are known to be rock solid. And of course, low running costs and a surprisingly roomy interior always get a mention. But let's be real, no car is perfect, especially a budget-friendly one. And to get that price so low, Hyundai definitely had to make some compromises. The biggest complaints you'll hear are about the interior plastics being pretty hard and scratchy. People also notice a bit more road and engine noise at highway speeds, and the ride can feel a bit firm, especially if you get one with the bigger wheels. It's dependable for sure, but nobody's calling it exciting. So if you're heading out to look at a used Accent, here's your 4-step mental checklist. First, on the really old models, you've got to check for rust, especially around the wheel arches. Second, get inside and test every single electronic thing. Third, you absolutely need to see a full service history. Regular oil changes are so important for those GDI engines. And finally, and I can't stress this enough, get a proper inspection done by a mechanic you trust. So when you pull it all together, the mission of the Hyundai Accent becomes crystal clear, doesn't it? It was never trying to be a sports car. It wasn't trying to be a luxury sedan. Its one and only goal was to deliver this unbeatable mix of value, solid reliability, and tons of equipment in a really sensible, easy-to-live-with package. And for decades, it absolutely nailed that mission. And that kind of leaves us with a bigger question to chew on, really. The Accent is the perfect example of a trade-off. It chose dependability over excitement, value over luxury. So what's the true measure of a car's success? Is it all about the thrill it gives you on a fun road, or is it about something quieter, like the peace of mind you get just knowing it's going to start every single morning no matter what? Something to think about.